In this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know in order to pass the speaking paper of the C2 Proficiency Cambridge English exam, also known as the CPE. So welcome to the Point English with me, Ben, English teacher with 19 years experience, and Amy, she has 5 years experience of basically just being a pain in the bum. But today we're talking about the speaking paper of the C2 Proficiency Cambridge English exam. Now, the first thing you need to know about the speaking paper of the exam is that it's quite different to the C1 Advanced and B2 First speaking papers. The rest of the exam is quite similar. The format and the type of questions are quite similar, obviously just a higher level. But the speaking paper is quite different. So if you have taken either of those exams in the past at some time and you think you're prepared for the C2 Proficiency because you've done those exams, be careful in particular with the speaking paper because you need to know the differences, the format. And I'm going to explain that today. So there are 3 parts to the speaking paper of the C2 Proficiency Cambridge exam, and it lasts about 16 minutes. And you will do this part of the exam with one partner or sometimes 2 partners. So part 1 is the interview, part 2 is the collaborative task, and part 3 is the long turn and discussion. And I'll go into more detail about each of these parts now, and I'll give you some tips to help you get the best score possible. So part 1, the interview, lasts about 2 minutes, and it's really what we call an icebreaker. It's just to make the candidate feel comfortable in the situation and just to break the ice so they can start talking in English with the examiner. And what Cambridge are looking for here is general, interactional and social language. So it's very general. The questions will be about you. And the first 2 questions you can be sure of. You can prepare for these first 2 questions because they will always be the same. They will be, where are you from? And are you working or studying at the moment? So this gives you a real opportunity to make a good first impression. Think of some impressive vocabulary you can use. So where are you from? Think of nice adjectives you can use to describe your hometown or your city or your neighborhood, and use them. And maybe even some idiomatic expressions to really impress the examiners. It's an opportunity. Now, as I said, you can really prepare for these 2 questions, but at the same time you have to try to make it sound as natural and fluent as possible. You don't want to sound like a robot just reading a script or remembering your lines. So try to use more fluent intonation. Don't just say, I come from a small village in the southeast of the country, but now I live in the capital where I'm very happy and I would like to live for the rest of my life. That's obvious, you're just remembering it by heart and the examiners will notice that. So try to make it more natural. But you can prepare to take advantage of this first part. The third question, there will be a third question in this first part, the interview part. You can't prepare for that, but it will be a question about you, about your thoughts on your English studies or your hobbies. I can't tell you because I don't know what the question will be, but you can't prepare for it. But again, take it as an opportunity to impress the examiners. It won't be a particularly difficult question, but it's an opportunity. And part 2 is the collaborative task, which lasts about 4 minutes. And in this part of the paper, you'll be given some photographs. It's possible that you'll be given just 1 photograph, but usually there are 4 or 5 photographs. And you need to talk about these photographs. Now, the first task you have, which lasts 1 minute, is just to talk about 1 or 2 of the photographs with your partner, and answer quite a general question. And then you'll have about 3 minutes for a decision-making task, where you'll need to work together towards a negotiated completion of the task. So often the task is quite complicated, it's quite long, and it's important to really pay attention to what the examiner says. It's sometimes difficult to remember everything they've said and to really do the task as expected. So really pay attention, and if necessary, ask the examiner to repeat the task. That's not usually a problem. If you just ask them to repeat the task once to make sure you understand what you have to do, that's very important. A good tip here to help you with this task is to look at the title. On the page with the photographs, you will see the title of the task. So when you're speaking, if you forget exactly what you're actually supposed to be doing, just have a look at the title, and that may remind you and help you focus on answering the questions in the task. And also remember that this is not a test of your knowledge. In fact, none of the speaking part of the exam is a test of your knowledge. It's a test of your ability to speak and communicate and negotiate and all of these kind of things. So don't worry if it's a topic you don't really have a clue about. It's okay to say that to the examiners. You can say, well, this is something I'm not really an expert on, or I have no idea about this topic, but, because the but is you're going to speak about it anyway, because you must speak whatever the topic is. You don't need to be an expert, you don't have to have any specialist knowledge. Now, according to Cambridge Assessment English, this is the focus of the exam. This is what they're looking for. So the focus is on sustaining an interaction, exchanging ideas, expressing and justifying opinions, agreeing and or disagreeing, suggesting, speculating, evaluating, reaching a decision through negotiation, etc. So it's all of those things you have to do, and etc. So really it's everything. It's when I say everything, it means you have to have a natural, fluent conversation with your partner regarding the task. Apart from answering the task, you have to try to include some impressive vocabulary, maybe some idiomatic expressions, anything that you feel could get you extra points, because this is not a natural situation. Although you're trying to sound natural, it's not natural. You're in an examination center with an examiner, an assessor, a partner, and you're against the clock. You only have 3 minutes for the second part of this part of the exam. Now, part 3 is the long turn and discussion. Now, this is really 2 parts in one. I don't know why they don't call it part 3 and part 4 instead of just part 3, but it is what it is. Now, this part lasts about 10 minutes. You'll have 2 minutes for your long turn, individual long turns, plus some follow-up questions, and then 6 minutes at the end for the discussion. Now, in the long turn, you will be given cards with a question and 3 ideas on the card. Now, you must speak for 2 minutes answering the question, basically, alone. There will be no interruptions from the examiner or your partner. You just must speak alone for 2 minutes. Now, you have these 3 ideas, but in my experience of working with students for the proficiency speaking paper, it's actually better to ignore the ideas until you need them, if you need them. Just focus on answering the question, because if you look immediately at the ideas, then that can disrupt your train of thought. Maybe you wanted to talk about something different, answering the question, which would be an easier way to go for you. But when you look at the ideas, it can distract you and make you feel you must speak about those ideas rather than what you wanted to speak about. So I would recommend that you start just answering the question with your own ideas, and if after a minute you feel that you're running out of things to say, then look at the ideas and if necessary use them. But I really feel, and I've noticed with my students, that the ideas can actually be a distraction, so just focus on answering the question first. As I said, when you finish your long turn, there will be follow-up questions, so your partner will receive a follow-up question related to the question you had. So when you are the passive partner in this part, make sure you are paying attention to what your partner says. It's very easy just to switch off and think about the next part, or think about how you did in the rest of the exam, or think about what you're going to have for dinner that night. But no, don't do that. Make sure you pay attention to what your partner is saying. And even when you finish your long turn and your partner is asked the follow-up question, you must pay attention to the follow-up question, because there will be another follow-up question for you. Usually it's just, do you agree, or what do you think, or how about you? And that's when you have to give an opinion about what your partner said. So you have to be paying attention all the time. You can't switch off or get distracted. You always have to be listening to what your partner is saying. And when you finish the long turns, there will be a discussion, about 6 minutes of discussion, where you'll be answering questions that the examiner gives you. So the questions will be related to the topic in the long term. So it will be kind of a continuation. So if you feel that in your long term there was some vocabulary that you didn't use and you feel, oh, I missed an opportunity to use this vocabulary, stay calm, because you'll have plenty of opportunities in the discussion to use that vocabulary. So don't panic. Now this is a real opportunity, the last part, because this is when you can relax if possible. I know that's easier said than done, but try to relax and just have a really good conversation with your partner, and try to be authentic. Try to give your real opinions. I mean, there's no obligation to be honest or true or give your own opinions. You can say what you want, but I recommend that you do give your own opinion, because it's much easier to think and talk about something that you actually believe in, rather than just invent something because you don't have an opinion. Try to have an opinion, okay? It depends on the topic, of course, but it will be much more beneficial for you. Remember, these are not monologues. Sometimes people make the mistake of just sort of answering the question in a monologue style and then saying, what do you think, to the partner, which is kind of a conversation, but the way they present it, it's not really like a conversation. Again, body language and facial expressions all help to, and they're all part of communicating. So make sure it's an authentic conversation with your partner. It's not just you talking and then your partner talking. The examiner will ask you extra questions if and when necessary. So if you just have a nice long conversation about the first question, that's fine. If the examiner needs to ask you more questions, that's fine too, but try to make it as natural as possible. Okay, if you found this video useful, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because I'm going to be making a lot more videos to help you with your preparation for the Cambridge English exams. If you have any tips of your own, because maybe you have experience with other exams, then put them in the comments. I like it when students help each other out. And yeah, I'll see you soon for another video. Take care.